So today we have a pair of model L56's, JBLs, that we're going to part out. And the reason we're going to part them out is, one, the cabinets are just in really rough shape. The veneer is coming off, as you can see. So I wouldn't want to sell them because of that. But more importantly, the woofer, the driver, is not the original. And one thing I won't do is sell speakers that are not in original condition. I took these in for, I took in 4 of these for a small amount of money. And I knew that I'd have to part out 2 of them. The other 2 I'll probably keep and listen to. These actually sound quite good. The previous owner said that the drivers are LE10As, which are not standard to the model L56. I believe it's the 118H that's the correct driver. Anyway, you can see here that the original driver sat right here and it was circular. This one's cut off a little bit. And you can see the holes for the previous. So it looks what they did is they pulled the old drivers out and simply screwed these new ones in. Now, why did they do that? I suspect they needed to be refoamed, and they decided to go with these LE10s instead, which are actually probably better drivers. These also look to be refoamed. The original LE10s had a rubber surround, and it was almost like a plastic rubber, and the rubber would get tough, and it would cause the speaker to not be able to contract and go forward very much. So they needed to be refoamed, and whoever did this looks like they did a really nice job. The surround is on the back side of the cone, which is correct for a JBL driver, for most JBL drivers anyway. And there's no excess glue or anything like that. It looks like they did a pretty nice job with these. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get them over to the bench to test them out to make sure that they sound great, because I'm not going to part them out and sell a bad driver, so we got to test them first. Let's go get them to the bench. So here we are over at the bench. One of the things when you're dealing with a lot of vintage speakers you should have is a test setup. I have a test setup here. It's driven by an old iPod of mine that runs output to a small pile amplifier that runs down through here up to the speakers. And that way I can quickly hook up any speaker and, you know, check out whether it's sounding right or not. So let's take a listen to these and see what they sound like. So the tweeter's clearly working, and the woofer's clearly working. One thing that's kind of surprising to most people is that the majority of sound of speakers comes out of the woofer. On a two-way, the crossover point can be up at 2 kilohertz, 3 kilohertz, even 4 kilohertz, which means pretty much all of the sound comes out of the woofer. It doesn't come out of the tweeter. There's a very small amount of high frequency sound that comes out of the tweeter. So the woofer really presents the most sound.
On a white and cold morning, she left without warning.
Yeah, they sound beautiful.
She wouldn't stay away.
Quite simply, they sound beautiful. So that verifies that both drivers are working. I'll go ahead and do another test with the other speaker to make sure that both speaker drivers are working, and then we'll part them out. So here I've set this speaker up on the low table that I have. It's always good to have a low table by the bench, because the bench, at least in my case, is a little high. I don't want to be digging in like this, so it's nice to have a low table. So let's start by pulling the woofers out. Let's see, these should slip right out. Yeah, they're loose, so that shouldn't be too much of a problem. We'll just pull them right out. Let's get them unhooked. So they've got some compression connectors here. And let's take a look and see what we got here. Let's see if it's indeed what the original owner said. So we have a model JBL L10A, exactly what he said they were. These are quite nice speakers. These are, and here you can see the recone job, or the re-foam that the previous owner did, or whoever. It almost looks like it was done by a professional to me, because it's done quite well. And you can see the yellow here is the old foam surround. Not foam, it was rubber. And I mentioned earlier that the rubber gets kind of tough. One of the things you can do to soften them up a little bit is you can put a little brake fluid on them. You paint a little brake fluid around the sound, and that'll actually soften those old rubber surrounds up for about 6 months. But here what they've done is they've done a complete recone, which is re-foam, which is the right thing to do. And it looks like the driver's in excellent shape, and we just heard it, so we know it's sounding good. So here's one that is ready for eBay. So the tweeters are in there with a pair of Allen head screws, and here it helps to have a selection of Allen head drivers for the drill. This happens to be a 3/32, which is the one that works. It's always nice to have a selection of tools, of course. Let's pull these out. And let's see what tweeter we have in here, because I don't recall what's in this particular L56. But let's take a look here. This is a JBL LE20 1 8-ohm tweeter. Here again, that's going to be worth a little money. So we're going to take this and we're going to clip these, and I'm going to clip them with a lot of length. See, these connector wires are in underneath here, so I'm going to leave them with the driver, and I'm going to clip them with a fair amount of length so that the next person has plenty of wire length to deal with it. So here we got two. We got the LE10A driver for the woofer, and we got the LE20 for the tweeter. Now, next we're going to do the crossover, but first we're going to pull that foam out of there. One of the things I like to do when I'm pulling the insulation out is I keep with me a pair of, or a box of food grade gloves, because this insulation, sometimes it's fiberglass, and this looks like fiberglass insulation to me. It can really get into your pores and kind of drive you nuts. So I like to at least protect my hands just a little bit. So let's see what we got. Yeah, this is fiberglass. Let's pull this out. Set it aside. Try not to breathe in too much. Wear a mask if you feel such. And here we have the crossover, or the network as some people call it. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to pull that out. Now that we have access to the crossover, let's pull out the 4 screws holding that in place. I could probably fit the drill driver in here, but let's just do it the old-fashioned way. last one. Which should allow this to just slide out of there, and of course it does. There we are. Now we have our woofer, we have our tweeter, and we have our crossover network. Taking a look at this network here, it looks to me like it's original because these are electrolytic capacitors for the tweeter, and I suspect that that's original. Normally when people upgrade networks nowadays, they replace capacitors with film capacitors. So I suspect these are original. I'm not going to touch them. If I were not parting out this set of speakers and we're going to keep them, one thing I would do is I'd upgrade these capacitors to more modern film capacitors, because the older electrolytics, they tend to go bad after 20, 30 years for sure. The capacitance changes on them, but more importantly, the resistance in them changes quite a bit. So it's worthwhile upgrading those. But I'm going to leave that to the new buyer. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take all these three things and I'm going to list them on eBay. Of course, after I do the next one. The cabinets are worthless. I'm just going to throw them away. Throw away the old foam insulation. That's probably all that's left to do with these things. So I'll quickly do the other one here, and then we'll have some time to do some eBay listings. Here's the other speaker. Let's real quick do these. And let's go ahead and pull out the tweeter screws too. And wait, lo and behold, the tweeter screws have been replaced. They're not the original Allen head. So that's a little disturbing. That tells me that this driver's been out. But yet again, it's all the more reason to part these things out, because they're not original. Yep, those are definitely not the right original driver screws. So I got a woofer that should pop out pretty easy. Yep, it does. Let's disconnect it again real quick. Put that right there for now. That'll stay there. Let's pop the tweeter out. And this tweeter is completely different. Look at this. No, it's not different. It doesn't have the housing. That's what it is. It doesn't have the housing on it. Now compare these. Let's see. No, wait, hold on. These are different tweeters. Yeah, look at that. This one is a model LE20. And this is a model LE20-1. Let's check the woofers to make sure. This is an LE10A and that's an LE10A. So what we really have here is we have different drivers for the tweeters, same drivers for the woofers, different drivers for the tweeters. And it won't surprise me now if the crossover's different as well. Pull this out real quick. Oh, another thing to notice, that I didn't have to put on my plastic gloves to pull the foam out over the network, because the crossover network has someone's been in this one, obviously. And more than just the woofer replacement. Last screw, and then we'll be done. There we go. This should come out just like that. And there is the other network. Let's take a look. No, they look identical. So we have two identical crossovers, we have two identical woofers, and we have two non-identical tweeters. And that's what we get to list on eBay. So let's go take a look at eBay. Just taking a look at eBay to look at the prices for these particular drivers to see what they're listing at. The JBL LE10As, here's a pair of them for $275 plus $50 in shipping. Here's an LE10A for $175. So it looks like they're fetching some money. $400 for a pair. Now, one thing that you have to realize with eBay prices is these are listing prices, and that's not what people are getting for these things. So what you need to do is you need to go over and check sold items. If you click on sold items there, then what you'll get is you'll get a list of actual sales for what you're looking for. So here again, here's a miscellaneous collection for $715. Here's a pair of LE10A woofers for $100. So that's quite a disparity from what the original listing prices of the earlier drivers were. Here's another pair for $157. Here's an individual for $169, $159. So this should give you some idea of, you know, what to list these at. If if you think they're in good shape, like these have been refoamed, and looks like they've been professionally done, they might sell on the little higher end range. Or if you want to move them fast, like I particularly do right now, I might just list them for $100 each, which will come in below what people are asking for them, and they'll sell quite quickly then. Now we're doing the same thing with the JBL LE20 tweeters and see what's listed here. Here's a pair of LE20-1s for $130. Remember, we have one of these, and the other one is an LE20, not -1. These look different, so I'm not sure what the story is of that. Those are sold. Let's go back. Let's check listed prices now. And we have, here we go, I have an LE20-1 for $84. A pair of LE20-1s for $220. So as you can see, these parts are fetching some prices, which is good to know, because a lot of times you can part these speakers out and you can make a lot more money than if you try to sell them on the open market. These speakers as is would probably only sell for $200 considering the shape they're in, maybe less, maybe 100, 150, even 100. They're mismatched drivers. The wrong woofers are in them, so they're definitely not going to command much on the open market. But individually, the drivers might command quite a bit. Lastly, when I search eBay for the JBL L56 crossovers to see what they're selling at, I don't see any here. Here's a 4410 crossover for $38. So it's going to be a little hard to price them. But we'll have to do a little more research and see what they're worth. They're probably not worth more than $30, $40, $50 each, maybe even $40, $50 a pair. It's one of those things. You can try a little higher price and see what happens, or you can list them cheap to sell them. So that's about it for this video. Just to summarize, we have a pair of JBL L56's we decided to part out. And we got a pair of LE10 woofers, a mismatched pair of LE20 tweeters, and two L56 networks that we were able to sell. Altogether, these might fetch $300, $400, $500. Certainly better than the original speakers that we had, which really aren't worth that much. So, anyway, thanks for watching. Hit like and subscribe if this video was helpful to you. and take care.